now 9-2 after a 31-24 victory over BYU here in majestic Provo, Utah. Brian, 2 huge turnovers. Billy Bowman on the pick 6, 100-yard pick 6, and then Danny Stutzman with the, I guess you would call it, the sack and strip, and I believe it was Lacey that recovered it on that. Oklahoma, Gavin Sawchuk, 16-yard barreling of a run. You thought it was Tawi Walker running there with how strong he was running there. And at that point, the game seemed to be solidified. And not to mention, guys, I think this is probably the biggest story of it all, is Jackson Arnold burned his red shirt to come in the second half and fill in for the ailing, injured Dylan Gabriel. They called it a head injury on the Sooners radio network. BV just called it upper body injury. He did say that he would be coming back here pretty quickly, and then backtracked a little bit and said we'll see later on in the post-game interview. So again, we will see how that works up. But nonetheless, you got some really good experience for Jackson Arnold if he is called on Friday in that short week when they play TCU at home on senior night. And with things going a little bit, we'll see how it turns out. Oklahoma State is down 14-9 in the second quarter against Houston, so we'll see how it turns out. But Oklahoma continues to position themselves for a potential run to play in the Big 12 title game. What is your quick overall thoughts on this game as we just kind of encapsulate, I guess, a few paragraphs?
Well, it was the third game in a row that Gavin Sawchuk went over 100 yards. And I think that the consistency that you found in the running game there has helped the offense, especially in a situation where, as you said, Jackson Arnold has to step in and into what was a hostile and really, really awesome environment. He showed some poise. You know, there were some times he overthrew Nick Anderson on a potential touchdown pass, but he looked really good. And I think that having that running game really helped him out. The throw on 3rd and 7 to Jalil Farouk was big time. I mean, absolutely monstrous throw from him. And just to have the poise as a freshman to stand and do that was great. So really liked that. But what I have to say is the adjustments from the defense in the second half and all the stops that they made. As crazy as it sounds,
they were awful.
There were stretches of this game where the Oklahoma defense just did not look like itself. BYU is not a good offensive team. They just haven't been. Oklahoma, 4 stretches of that game, let them look that way, but they really clamped down to end the game. And I think that's really what shows. This team struggled on the road, but they found a way in the end to overcome that, and that's huge.
It's weird. Neutral fields, they seem to play good, really good. In away games, they play meh. Yeah. Home, they look like all world for the most part this season. So I keep saying this team is an enigma to me. I can't quite figure them out and who they are personality-wise. But I think Brent Venables kind of lined this thing up a little bit where, and I think he summarized them. He said, my guys like to play. Danny Stutzman, Austin Stogner were throwing their guts out before the game, and all week. They were sick. They've had the flu. They've had to get multiple IVs all week. They had to get IVs before the game. They had to get IVs during the game. They were fighting. And obviously, Stutzman down there inside the 30 comes up with a big strip sack. And right over here on this end zone, Austin Stogner with a big 3rd and long catch that ended up in a touchdown. So, I mean, it's, you come to play, and that's what Brent Venables likes about this team. He just says they're ball players. I don't think he thinks or feels that this team is the most talented team he's going to have at Oklahoma. I think 24 and 25, those are going to be the teams that are probably the most talented on paper. But this team, they're tough, they're rugged, they make plays when they have to, and that's a sign of I don't want to say championship team because they've lost 2 games, but potential conference title team if things shake out for them somewhat tonight or over the next 2 weeks. And we'll see how that does. I think another thing, you brought up Sawchuk. I got to give credit where credit's due, and Saul McCullough limped around out there and made a couple of QB hurries and a couple of plays in the run game that that I thought was pretty critical. You could totally tell he is not near 100%.
Right.
He's got a huge gimp on his right leg. But he made a big play on a big third down here in the first half. Just absolutely destroyed Retzloff. Just destroyed it. And that was huge. But the run defense, first off, Epps feels like he's been here for BYU, been there for like 10 years. But he's a really good running back. They started to, and I asked Venables this in the presser. I said, what, the cutbacks, everything that they're doing, he goes, they did a whole lot of things to really screw with how Oklahoma flies to the ball. Oklahoma was over pursuing, and they were catching them on that. And then on the option game, they could not figure out the option, the speed option, at all. Like, for some odd reason, and I love Ethan Downs, he's one of my favorite players, but he could not figure it out. He kept going to the quarterback instead of his man, which was, in that case, the running back. And the backside, the spillover linebacker was supposed to be getting the quarterback when he cuts up the lane. It was a weird, those plays were weird. They kept underplaying them instead of overplaying. And then the rest of the run game, they were overplaying, and BYU was just catching them every time with cutbacks. How do you stop that?
Well, I asked Rondell Bothroyd in post game. I said, the mesh point, obviously, the quarterback, Retzloff, was really, really good at holding the ball until the last second. And he did just enough to make them have to respect him, and that opened up holes for Aiden Robbins, who obviously was huge in this game. So, I asked him, what did it take? What was the adjustment? And he said, well, we didn't have to make any adjustments. We weren't playing tight enough. We weren't tight enough. There was too much space for them to work with there at the mesh point. So, and I think you saw them, they did a better job controlling that in the second half. But, this was just a game where it was senior night. They're playing it for senior night at 10 a.m. And playing in front of a really, really good home crowd here. And when you give the home team the kind of momentum that BYU had early, you set yourself up for a hard game like we saw. So we had another slow start. We saw another slow start from Oklahoma, but they were able to overcome it. And I think that's what you really have to take.
Real quickly, Parker, pan over there at that rainbow over the mountain. That's awesome. That is what we're talking about, folks. I've been to Boulder, I've been to the Rose Bowl. This ranks up here as one of the most majestic places, and I love the fact that Oklahoma got to come here before their time in the Big 12 ended. There's going to be a lot of really cool places Oklahoma's going to get to go to over the next however long they're in the SEC, in the non-con games. But this experience, if you guys get the chance to do it, come here, watch a game. It's really, really cool. It's beautiful. I love it. Again, who are your two players of the game, offense and defense?
I'm gonna go Danny Stutzman, flu game. Had a flu game, led the team in tackles. Let's see, he had 10 tackles here. 10 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and a forced fumble. I mean, just another excellent game from him. And then offensively, I've got
Going Arnold.
Yeah, I'll take Arnold. Yeah, stepping in a situation like this for a freshman, I mean, it's just tough. Being down there on the field, that is not an easy thing to do.
The cameras were shaking.
Yes, they were extreme. They were loud. I mean, it was a really. But he showed poise. And the thing that I noticed, he didn't throw the ball all over a yard and have 1,000 yards, but he controlled the offense. He controlled the offense, and you didn't see nearly as many issues with the snaps as after that second snap that he almost fumbled. He held in there and did a really good job. So I'm going to go Jackson.
Yeah, I love Jackson. I just want to reiterate, Jackson played a really solid game. He came in, did what he was supposed to do, didn't turn the ball over. Levy talked about that, and I talked to Levy about it. I said, dude, what can you say? He goes, we were talking on the phone every time he came up the field. He's like, it's okay. As long as you hold on to ball and we're punting, kicking a field goal, scoring a touchdown, or taking a victory knee at the end of the game, you've done your job. That means you took care of the game and you put the rest on everybody else. And that's what he was asked to do in this situation. So he did a really good job. But my player of the game, Gavin Sawchuk on offense. Obviously his third straight 100-yard game. He ended up with 107 total yards, 7.6 yards a carry, 1 touchdown. Huge 16-yard run where he He looked like a man in that. And then on defense, I'm going to go Billy Bowman. Billy Bowman, pick 6, 7 tackles. He had 1 tackle for loss. And then obviously one of the biggest plays of the game that turned the tide back in Oklahoma's favor for a little bit. And then Stutzman capped it off. So I think it was pretty easy who the players of the game here were today on offense and defense. But that's going to do it for us here on the Instant Analysis, OU Insiders Instant Analysis. For Brian Clinton, my name is Brandon Drum. Oklahoma now 9-2 after a 31-24 win here in majestic Provo, Utah.